Thank you all so much for joining us today. I am Jen G, and I am one of the originals from the what was Women for Biden-Harris. We started out in 2020 when we realized it was going to also be a very different kind of election. And we started really on all digital because we weren't knocking doors back in 2020. We eventually became the largest all volunteer grassroots organization working with the Women's Coalition for the campaign. And then, fast forward, we became Women for Harris Waltz. And then after November, we became Women Forward. We decided we took a page from Kamala's turn the page idea and say we are going to keep moving forward. We are people who come from all walks of life and professional experience. We have teachers, lawyers, farmers, corporate executives, recent college grads, grandmothers. But our common bond is our commitment to democracy. And now we have 1.4 million followers from all 50 states across our social platforms, and we reach millions more through our partnerships and other activities. The period that we find ourselves in reminds me of the opening of A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epic of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, and it was the winter of despair. This last Saturday, with the assassination that we saw in Minnesota, the very tragic shootings, that's the winter of despair part. But then on Saturday, also, we saw just tremendous turnout across the country for No King's Day protests. And we know that so many of you that are on here, probably all of you, were either out there or honking your horns, driving by the rallies and protests. And it was joyful and fierce resistance. So one of the ways that we feel like we can contribute the most is to continue to recruit women to help them find a way in, whether that's writing postcards or volunteering at an office or phone banking. We continue to try to bring more and more people in. So with that, I'm going to just briefly introduce, and then I will drop their bios in the chat, an amazing panel who will speak to how we accomplish all that we do and mostly speak about the wonderful work that Elect Democratic Women does. We have Representative Lois Frankel from Florida 2022, not 2022, just 22. And she's the chair of Elect Democratic Women, and she's joined currently by Representative Norma Torres from California 35, and a little bit later in the program, Representative Emilia Sykes from Ohio 13 will pop on. With that, let me turn it over to Representative Frankel to give some overview.
Here we go. Well, hi everybody, Lois Frankel from sunny Florida, South Florida. Happen to be the representative of, guess who? Donald J. Trump. Isn't he lucky? Anyway, I'm very happy to be with you, and thank you so much for the very good work that you all been doing. I know that we share the same truth here. When women lead, our country is stronger, safer, more prosperous, and more just. And I'm happy to be with my colleague, Norma Torres. We both are on the board of Elect Democratic Women. And let me just tell you why we started this PAC, which is the PAC of the Democratic Women of Congress. Because we know what you know, I'm sure, is that for democracy to work, the lawmakers need to reflect the people that we represent. And even today, even though we've made a lot of progress, I'm going to tell you about that. Still, really because of the Republicans, women are only making up about a third of Congress because they don't have that many over there. We're almost getting to be half of the Democrats in the House. But we know that men and women, we should have equal opportunities. It doesn't mean we're the same. We're not the same. As moms, grandmas, caregivers, I'm a grandmother. Nora, I don't know what you are. Same? Okay. Breadwinners, whatever. we bring different experiences and different priorities. And if you look at the history of women in Congress, they say the proof is in the pudding. Do you know that until Patsy Schroeder and Nancy Pelosi were on appropriations, that medical research was only done on men? Today, women who are veterans can thank Julia Brownley for California because she has done so much to advance the health of women veterans. Mikey Sherrill and Chrissy Houlihan, both veterans, have been leading the charge to make sure the armed services are respectful, good places for women, and including a charge to bring childcare. Lauren Underwood, a nurse, has taken the lead on maternal health care. Rosa DeLaura, our appropriations chair, she has been the leader for expanded child tax credit and for pay equity measures. And when it comes to reproductive freedom, when we look back, Diana DeGette, Barbara Lee, and now Ayanna Presser leading our pro-choice caucus. Listen, that doesn't mean we don't love our male colleagues. We love our male colleagues. I'm the grandmother of 2 young boys, but I want them to grow up in a world where every person, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to lead and to thrive. Elect Democratic actually started in my living room with a number of women. We were elected together back in 2012. We had to find ourselves eating dinner together and really sharing so many common experiences. And we started Elect Democratic Women. We're going to start with a slide. Oh, here's our board. Well, now we've expanded our board. You can see who they are. They're from all over the country. I won't read the names. They bring a really great diversity to our board, some new energy. We'll go to the second slide. See what the second slide's going to say. Okay, well, that's got a lot of numbers on there. But here is, I think that's our 2024 cycle, what happened last cycle. We elected, now when I say we don't work by ourselves. Emily's list is out there, the DCCC, and of course, most importantly, the candidates themselves. But we added 17 new women House members in the last cycle and 3 new senators. And there you can see some of the monies that we spent. But this is something, when we started our PAC in 2018, sorry about that, 2018, there were 64 Democratic women, and now we're up to 96, and we are aiming for 100 by the end of 2026. Okay, we've got another slide coming up, I think. The way we work is we like to protect what we call our current frontline members. These are the women who are in the most difficult seats. And a little bit, you're going to hear from Emilia Sykes, who we have helped. You can see who these are. Susie Lee in Nevada, Dina Titus in Nevada, Janelle Bynum. We got there in Oregon, Marie Lucenkamp Perez. In Washington, Kristen McDonald-Rivet. In Michigan, Marcy Captain, Ohio. Emilia Sykes, you're going to meet her. She's in Ohio. Johanna Hayes in Connecticut. Laura Gillen in New York, and Nellie Pooh, who is in New Jersey. Those are the women members of Congress who are in most jeopardy, and we do a lot of focusing on their races, and we do not only with just direct PAC checks, but we get them involved. We do joint digital fundraising, and we have IEs that help them. Okay, next slide. We're also recruiting and supporting over 40 targeted districts. These are the districts, we'll get that. You can see they're all over the country, and that's really where we are, have great opportunities to flip seats. And they're all kinds, they're women coming from all kinds of backgrounds there. So let's see there. We got teachers, veterans, scientists, activists, really great women from all over the country. So, listen, I'm going to wrap up now, and just say this, you know, it's not just a side issue to raise women, it's a strategy, and we need everybody helping us. If you know people who want to run, please let us know. Uh, uh, there's so many ways to be involved, and we have a goal. This is our goal for this cycle: increase the number of women to 100. Oh, maybe we'll even do better. Hold our Senate seats and help our colleagues as they run for higher office. Just to let you know, we are two of our women from the 2018 Congress that we helped elect. I think they're going to be the next governors of Virginia and New Jersey. How about that? And we've sent over a couple of senators too. Goal is to raise $16 million to distribute. And with that, I thank you again for having me on with you. I'm going to turn this over to the great Norma Torres of California, my colleague and board member of Elect Democratic Women.
Thank you so much, Representative Lois Frankel. She truly is the founder of our mission to elect more Democratic women and help ensure that we don't just stay in Congress, that the powerful women who want to run for higher office can continue to attain their dreams and continue to support their communities. I want to tell you a little bit about what it's been like to work with Donald Trump as the president of the United States and his executive team, and how difficult it has been as a woman, as a mom, as a grandma, as a spouse, to really be out there with a target on ourselves, pushing back against the policies that are not only hurting women, they're hurting our families across the country. I've been speaking out and acting to bring transparency and accountability to really unacceptable immigration enforcement actions being taken by President Trump in Los Angeles. Last week on June 7th, I went to downtown Los Angeles with 3 other of my colleagues to inspect and receive a briefing on the ICE facility, where we had heard reports of overcrowding and inhumane conditions. We were there, we were asked to hold on the side of the building while they were trying to get approval for us to come in. We had identified ourselves as members of Congress. We showed our identification, and their response was to ultimately deny us entry and eventually attack us with a chemical agent that was released while we were there, and while some family members of people who were detained were trying to provide or give medications to their loved ones. Others were just simply trying to get information about their loved one. This is just one example, a disgraceful abuse of power in one of the most diverse and accepting areas in our nation. ICE raids against non-criminal immigrants that are breaking up families, harming businesses, and creating fear. Instead of going after criminals as they initially said that they were going to do, the Trump administration has increased arrests of non-criminal immigrants by 800%, targeting people while they're at work, targeting school graduations, attempting to force their way into elementary school to arrest children, being involved in hit and runs in the street while they're attempting to chase down and stop immigrants, and instead they're finding themselves targeting American citizens, because the profiling is just that, profiling people simply because of the way they look. They chose more chaos, and they raised tensions by bringing in untrained National Guard and Marines with weapons of war to the streets of Los Angeles. Aside from the troubling constitutional issue that this raises, these individuals were sent without a mission, without resources, and without training. No one except for Donald Trump asked for this. Our local law enforcement, and I met with the Los Angeles Police Department, the chief of police, over the weekend, along with the mayor of Los Angeles, and They reconfirmed that they are capable of dealing with any of the violence, and what they need is for the targeting of brown people, immigrants to stop. This is a clear attempt, to racially profile people. This is also a clear attempt to silence peaceful protesters and dissent. This is a clear attempt to appease the ego of the president. And after last week's deadly attacks against Minnesota representatives, it is obvious to me that all of us are one vote and one protest away from political violence. And this is not normal. This is not how our democracy should operate. And I'll continue to be on the front lines speaking out for accountability and transparency. And thank you so much to all of the women listening today. We truly are standing on your shoulders, and everything that you are doing to push back against this unjust president's actions, it gives us the courage, and it gives us the energy that we need to continue doing our job. So thank you again, and I'm going to yield it back to Doug. You're on mute.
Yes, thank you. How many times have we been doing Zoom and we still forget to unmute, right? Thank you for that, both of you. Our main question to start this part of the conversation off is what are the biggest obstacles that women face when they're running for office, and what are some of the best strategies that you've seen in helping them, and or what we can do to help women run for office?
Well, I think the number one obstacle is the raising the money, because that is really, I hate to say it, but it is the most important part of running for a higher office today. And so, elect Democratic women, we not only raise money ourselves for candidates, we try to counsel them, encourage them, give them advice how they can do that. We have a great, small but very energetic, competent team that works with us. Our executive director, Liz, I think she's on today, but we have fundraisers that are professionals and who can give advice. And we also will send people to talk to advocacy groups that also raise money. So I would say raising the money is one. The other is, listen, usually by the time, if somebody contacts us, we know they're in it, they've thought it through, but sometimes we have to recruit. And really, it's interesting. I'm telling you, a man looks in the mirror and he thinks he's president of the United States, right? And Norma, what happens with the women?
I know it is. I would say that is one of the greatest challenges, is raising the money, but also having the support at home and in the community. Many of the women that we talk to that are running for Congress are heads of household themselves. They don't come from wealth. So imagine trying to hold together your household while campaigning in your community and while dialing for dollars. This job is about doing all of it. And I can't stress to you how important the money is, not just for us to get our message out there, but as a result of not just this weekend, but with the violent interactions that we have had with government officials. Campaign dollars is where we are being directed to look for funding to secure, our own personal security, and that is really unfortunate. So, assistance in raising the dollars to get our message out, I think, is one of the most important things.
Oops, you're mute.
I keep doing that. I should just leave it on, but I don't want to make noise in the background. One of the other questions that comes up, and we had this on our list, but also I see it already in the audience Q&A, is basically behind closed doors. What are you hearing from your Republican colleagues? I'd say especially the women, in terms of what they feel about what's happening. And what is the way to pressure those to go that are speaking privately to stand up?
Well, I haven't found any women speaking privately, if you really want to know. It is not the women, the Republican women are no, how should I say this diplomatically? They're not any more enlightened than the men.
Right.
Put it to you that way. In fact, they are often used as, I think, I hate to say this, but as pawns. So, for example, if if the if the if you look at where they have the women, their women lead bills, it's on the Women Against Violence. It's anything to do with reproductive health.
Right.
It's unbelievable, but that's when they give their women an assignment, you know, contrary to the Democrats, because we got women every place leading on almost every issue. So it's really sad, but the Republicans, listen, it's not that we have friends. I have friends who are Republicans, and there are a lot of not good, decent people. I will say that, but they are very, very frightened by what would happen to them if they step out from Donald Trump. I have not found. There's maybe one exception in the Congress, and I think he's going to retire. What do you think, Norma?
Yeah, they had a big blowout early on in this administration because Republican women were feeling left out. None of them were tapped for leadership positions in committee chairmanships, and they were fighting hard for these positions. They know that the chairman of these committees are the ones that are setting the agenda, that are, they're the ones that are tasked to get witnesses to committee rooms. So it's a really, really important job. And they none of them were able to get themselves in one of these positions. So there was a big falling out, and I was hopeful that they would speak out more, but unfortunately, that has not been the case. And honestly, I really don't care what they may be telling each other in the background. What matters is that which button that they push. What matters is how they engage with the rest of us in bringing down the political violence that we are seeing um, coming out of this administration. And I don't see a partnership across the aisle, even from the women in this space.
No, it's
That is
sad because we used to have. There is a bipartisan women's caucus, and I will tell you this: years ago, uh, we, I remember that we worked together on the Me Too issue back then, and really childcare. I don't think we could get that today, not at all.
wow. There's one question that I want to wait until Representative Sykes is on to ask all three of you, and we'll do that towards the end after she speaks. She hasn't gotten here yet, but I did want to ask something that came up in the Q&A from the audience that is probably for you, Representative Torres. Are any of you suing ICE? I mean, obviously people are horrified about what's happening and wanting to know how they can help. I mean, obviously spreading stories and info, but like, what are the ways that people can help, and who's suing over this?
Yeah, we've not filed lawsuits. I did send a letter requesting for a full investigation, requesting for information on the approval process to release this chemical toxin on members of Congress. By the way, I had to go to the hospital because I have a pre-existing condition, asthma, and that chemical affected me in a way that now, as you hear me, I developed a lot of issues with allergies because of the medication. I was on steroids and it shuttered, my immune system. I think that we will have our day in court, not speaking necessarily for myself, but for my community that are being targeted. If truly they are seeing immigrants, undocumented immigrants as criminals, then they ought to be reading them their Miranda rights. They're being denied that. When American citizens are being caught up in these raids where they're just chasing people, walking in the street or at a Walmart or a Home Depot, that is a violation of the 12th Amendment, when they are encroaching on the rights of peaceful protesters. That's also a violation. We will see our day in court. I'm hopeful someday, but this is why we need you at all of these protests or at all of these raids. We need you to be the witness. We need you to document what you see. We need you to take photos and videos of what you are seeing. We will have our day in court. I am hopeful, and we need that. That's my grandbaby. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Talking about court, there are hundreds of lawsuits
Yes.
going on now. And one of the roles that Democrats are playing behind the scenes is feeding the lawyers lots of information that we're able to, we have from our research to help them.
That's really good to know, because some of that behind the scenes stuff we don't know, what's being done. We have a question from someone specifically about running against Dan Sullivan in Alaska, but it's probably a broader question of like, how does one go about that? Like, where does one start? They said it seems to be this idea that it requires money and someone with a degree in politics.
Oh.
Okay, well, look, I can tell you this.
Mhm.
It doesn't require you to have money or to have a degree in politics. In fact, women, especially, I mean, we do have a lot of women who, we do have a lot of members who've come from a different political office, but really we have people coming from all walks of life, and that's what really makes the Congress very dynamic. Is that now? Here's the thing: if you want to run, if anyone who's listening, you want to run, there, I would say this. I would tell you to get in touch with Emily's list for sure. Get in touch with our Liz Gallagher, Elect Democratic Women, and we could give you some good pointers of where to start. Now, it doesn't hurt to have a good Rolodex, because that's where most people start to raise money, is with their Rolodex. Because listen, most of us do not have the kind of fortunes to put into a race that you need the multi-million dollars to win a congressional race. So there's I think you can, if you look at the bank accounts of the women in Congress, they're all very different. In fact, I don't
Yes.
know if anybody funded their own race.
No, I would add, you don't need a degree in politics. We really need a quilt representing America. I mean, look, I was a 911 dispatcher by trade. I did that in the city of Los Angeles for 17 and a half years. But I didn't just put my name to run for Congress. It took me 14 years to get to Congress. I started at the local level, city council, elected mayor, elected to the state assembly in California, state senator, and eventually I got to Congress. It took me that long, again, because when I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't have the confidence to say, you know what, I could be that next member of Congress. So it took me a little bit to get that courage. We can't afford, for you, we will give you the courage. That mirror that is looking back at you is telling you that leadership matters. And, we need you in Congress right now. So we will do everything that we can to help you.
And you think about it, just everyday living, especially most people, if you are a mother, for example, oh my goodness, just running the household and all the things you have to do, you're qualified.
Yes. And it's interesting. I was at a women's leadership conference 2 years ago, I think it was, and there was a panel with some of the newer members of Congress, and I believe it was Representative Underwood, who, it might not have been, I think that's who it was, who said, don't just think about Congress, and this speaks to your point, Norma, like Representative Torres, it's think about what the issue you care the most about and go find out what area, what legislative office or elected office actually works on that. Because then you get into something that you care about and you can progress from there. So if you're interested in fixing the potholes, probably not going to be a good congressperson. Like, go and run for city council. But I thought that was really beautiful to think about that way.
That's a great point, because what you'll find, what I have found, is, especially for the women, is if you hear their pitch running for Congress, it usually started with something at home, a child who was a diabetic, right? For me, it was a son who went to war, and I wanted to, keep our kids safe. And so it usually is something personal that drives people to these offices.
Yep, for me, it was a 911 call that I took where an 11-year-old girl was murdered at the hands of her uncle. Her last words were, "Uncle, please don't kill me. It's not my fault."
Oh my cheek.
And but it's you have to be right now, the type of member of Congress that we need are people that are not tied to, having a title. I mean, we need fighters. We need people in the trenches right now. So if you're out there listening and you're thinking about it, or maybe not, and you have a couple of bucks to donate to elect Democratic women, the link is in the chat. We can use your help and support to elect the number of women that we need in order to make a difference and take back the House.
One of the, there's sort of a theme in the Q&As about just women being told not to run, who wants to run, but being told to make space for someone else, or it's not your time, that kind of thing. What would you say to that?
I think I've
Louis,
told that all my life, number one. And I think that if you really want to do this, I think that is your personal choice. And, we want to be your big sisters. Let us help you. Don't listen to bad advice. Listen to your gut. Right, Lois?
absolutely.
Well, and it's interesting because I think women have done relational organizing since time immortal. And like, so that's a great thing. Like, reach out, talk to people, find your support networks. It's so important that we have more women represented at all.
Absolutely. As I said, look at your Rolodex, your high school, your college, right? Your charity groups that you work with, your professional groups that you work with, your friends, your neighbors. That's where you start, to get into the mix. But no, don't let, if you believe it's your turn, you go for it.
Let me tell you, if you have just 30 seconds,
Yeah,
let me tell you a little
absolutely.
story. Last week on Saturday, when I ended up at the hospital, the nurse that was attending me, as soon as she saw me, she recognized me and she said, "I know you because I volunteered for you when you ran in a special election for Senate. I was in junior high school and your campaign office opened up and I was there with all my friends and we were calling our neighbors." That's the kind of difference that you want to make. And whether you can afford to give $1, whether you can afford to give an hour making calls to support someone if you don't want to run. I think that was so rewarding for me to be in one of the lowest moments in my in my time, and then to hear that from that young nurse was very inspiring for me.
That's wonderful. And perfect timing, Representative Sykes. Welcome to the conversation. We're delighted to have you here. We've been talking about overcoming barriers and what Elect Democratic Women does to help and what they've been doing. We'd love to have you share a little bit about your experience running and about yourself and your journey with this group and just generally as a woman running for office.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all.
By the way, I'm one of the
No, I'm ready to go. So thank you for letting me be a couple minutes late. I had another constituent call that was scheduled, but we worked it out so I could just be a little bit late and drop off that one early. So hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to say hello to my colleagues, Lois Frankel and Norma Torres. Good to see y'all. Good to see you smiling. I would say I'll start from the beginning because I often tell the story about how I never wanted to be in elected office, and it was because when I was born, actually, when my mom was pregnant with me, she was the first Black woman on Akron City Council, and before I even knew what was happening, I was exposed to council meetings and ward meetings, and her arguing with people all the time. And I certainly did not know what was going on, but I clearly knew what was going on. So my mom didn't expose me to novels and classical music. It was like these ward meetings. So it has very much been a part of my life since before I even knew what was going on. And because I had seen what it was like to be in elected office, I absolutely did not want to be an elected office holder, and did almost literally everything that I could do to not be one. I actually had aspirations, and still have aspirations, to be the principal dancer for the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. Um, I it was injured in college, so I was actually going to major in dance, but that didn't work out. So I did like all failed dancers, and I went to law school instead. So I got a law degree and a public health degree, and was back at home and really wanted to work in healthcare policy, particularly reproductive health policy. And my dad at the time was a state representative, and he was term limited, and he kept saying, "You should run, you should run, you should run." And I just said, "That's insane. Like, this is not my personality. It won't work for me." And then eventually I decided to run when I saw who was starting to raise their hand and say they wanted to be the state representative. And, this was my community. They raised me. Like, I'm really close to the people here, and I felt responsible in making sure that they actually had a representative who wanted to serve and not just have a title. And so I ran. So I served for 8 years in the state legislature. I was the minority leader for 3 of those years. I had a caucus. We led them in policy and politics. We were in a super minority, but we were incredibly efficient. In my first year, when I was the minority leader, we passed more bipartisan bills in that first year than we had in the previous 4 years combined. And we did things from criminal justice reform. We expanded the earned income tax credit. We did some maternal and infant mortality supports and funding. We increased public transit it was the highest level in the state's history. So we did a lot of really, really good work. But after being in the state house and being the minority leader, which is one of the toughest jobs in politics, I said I was done. I'm good. I've done my bit. I've done my time. I can do something else. Redistricting happened. There was a new congressional seat, and part of my job as the minority leader was going across the state begging people to run for office in these districts where we knew that they couldn't win. It was gerrymandered in a way that they wouldn't, but I'd still say democracy needs you. We can't just have Republicans. We have to have a voice on both sides. And then this new district came up, and then people were like, democracy needs you. We can't just have Republicans. We need someone to actually try to campaign in this really competitive seat. So I ran, and interestingly enough, the district that I filed to run in is not the district that I represent, and it's not going to be the district in a year, because the gerrymandering in Ohio and the redistricting never stops. But nonetheless, it is always and has always been important for my community to have a representative who truly cares about the future and the progress of our community. And it is what drives me every single day. And I can say fully, I would not be a member of Congress without elect Democrat women. There were so many people who told me from the beginning, you cannot win this race. This is an unwinnable race for a Democrat. I met with Lois. She told me to tell me your story. She's like, barking at me all these questions and stuff. And I could handle Miss Lois. And they were so helpful to me in the process in so many ways. And if you want more details, happy to tell them. But I can't thank elect Democratic women enough for all that they have done. Not only just for me to be a member of Congress, but to make sure that my community and my hometown has someone who truly has our best interests in mind, and not just some extremist political hack who is only in it just for their own selfish needs.
I want to say something about Emilia, because she's, well, you can see how great she is. But let me tell you something. This is a woman with incredible courage and perseverance, because she went in and she's in a seat that most people would just say, I'm not going to do it. And it's just really amazing, because these are tough elections. She's been in tough elections with millions of dollars spent against her, and look at her now. She's still smiling. And we're so proud to continue to support you, Emilia. And I want to just say to everybody who's listening, if you want to support the Emilia Sykes of politics, you can look into the chat and you can see how you can help EDW, or they can help you directly, Emilia.
Yes, you can also do that. But there's sometimes some things that like Democratic women can do for me that I can't do for myself. So it's a group effort. It's a group project.
Yeah, we had, before you got on, some people asking questions about what do you do when people say, you want to run and people say it's not your time, or you need to let somebody else have that space. And often it's the white men, just going to say it out loud, or just men. But was, I think there's a little bit of like, just run, find your sisters.
Yeah, whenever people ask me for advice, it is always just do it. See what happens. The worst that somebody can tell you is no. And if they tell you no, find someone who will tell you yes. And that's what Elect Democratic Women was for me. They said yes. Not only did they say yes when I was going through the process, they helped open doors for me with other organizations, with other members of Congress, with providing me some credibility where folks, I mean, truly, this is just not this was a district drawn for a Republican. There was like no way that anybody thought we were winning. They had completely decided Ohio was off the map. It is an R+1 district in, Ohio. You're not thinking Democrats are going to win. My electorate is 91% white, is about 6% Black. I don't have a diverse district in any sense of the word. And here I am, this, 30 something Black woman saying, I'm going to run in Ohio's 13th R+1 super, super, super white district. And I won by 5 points my first election. The second one, I ran against a white dude. So it went down a little bit because I told people, just by him being a white dude, he's going to get like 5 extra points. And he got a couple. He just got like the bump just because he existed. But, and he's going to run again and we'll deal with it. But, it is really important to have a network and to support networks that truly support women, because so often they tell us what we cannot do. And you're so right. They will tell us what you can't do. And I am certainly the test case of just being told over and over. I mean, I can't even tell you guys how many times I had meetings with people in DC and they just kept, they were like, oh, you're cute and all. That's very sweet that you're running, but we don't think that you're going to be able to win.
So I wanted to ask each of you to just, we saw massive outpouring of folks coming out on Saturday, which was incredible. You're hearing numbers 5 million, 8 million, 11 million, like it's kind of hard to know. It was a lot. What are you hearing in your districts from people? Like, are there shifts that you're seeing from folks that maybe are waking up a little to what's going on and how this regime, I say, instead of administration, is impacting negatively their lives? Why don't I start with you, Representative Frankel?
Well, I have it's sort of unique where I live because Mar-a-Lago is in my area. So we got some MAGAs here, but I'll tell you what I have found for my constituents. People are scared. They are legitimately frightened about what's happening in every which way. The Medicaid cuts, the threat to food security, the snatching mass men snatching people off of the street and putting them in trucks, and the president who denies courts and ignores the Congress. And so there was an energy. I saw an energy because I went out to my rally here. I saw an energy that I can't even remember ever seen. Maybe I was a protester from the 60s. So that's where I got my start in politics in the 1960s with the Vietnam War and civil rights and so forth. But there is a new energy out there, and I really believe it's going to last into the election. I just hope that there is not, you say Humpty Dumpty falls on the floor. I just hope that we can withhold some of this damage until that happens.
Yeah.
What do you see, Norma?
I also see a lot of excitement from people. They're frustrated, they're scared. I don't know if that, if that excitement is really going to turn into a voter, turnout. I've been seeing thousands of people in the street. In Los Angeles, downtown, 20,000. In New York, 20,000. San Diego, 20,000. And I'm thinking, my God, if you had just come out and voted, we wouldn't be in this mess right now. So, it's a little frustrating that we have to go through all of this suffering that, and mostly it's our families, the children, seniors, persons with disabilities. Today we heard the news about veterans being targeted. If you're a veteran and you're not married, if you're a veteran and don't agree with Republican politics or the president's politics, they could deny you according to the last executive order. They could deny you health care services. This is unconscionable. It's we don't have to fight this hard if we discipline ourselves and our children, to going out and voting in every election, and not just for the president, but up and down the ballot. We have to begin to educate everyone in our community that it is our duty as Americans to get out there and vote. And there isn't a duty that is more important than getting out there and voting.
So I have the distinction of the most evenly divided congressional district in the entire country based on the top of the ticket. Trump won my district by like 115 votes. So like barely the people on this phone call. And so I hear a lot of people say, Emilia, you are fighting the president, please stop. And I get a lot of people saying, you have to do more, you're not doing enough. And I get a good cohort of people saying, well, this is what we voted for, but not like this. And so it is a very interesting tightrope to walk, because there are so many varied interests. And so the thing that I've attempted to do is communicate to people in terms that make sense to them and where they will feel it, which is usually economic terms. And so as Rep. Frankel mentioned about the reconciliation and how it's impacting people in their Medicaid, we have our largest employers are healthcare providers. And so as I talk about Medicaid impacting the healthcare of people, I also talk about our local economy. And if this payer system can't pay our hospitals, and we have a children's hospital in our little bitty community too, they're going to have to lay off people. And then I also remind people that a lot of these positions are women majority: nurses, home health care workers, social workers, and these are the folks who are going to be impacted the most. And so once we start putting it all together, then we hear folks. I just like Rep. Torres said, the turnout was really disappointing. And I don't have a lot of people of color in my district. Altogether, the electorate is not even 10%, but every one of them not turning out, those are usually voters who are going to vote for me. And when we can't encourage and motivate voters of color to vote for a Democrat, that's really impactful. I mean, that really makes or break me. Like the non-Black, non-Hispanic, non-Asian American voters are just kind of going to go 50-50. And then that is going to be where I make it up. Actually, it's not going to go 50, it's going to go closer to 55-45. And so that's where it is important to me to make sure that even though my district doesn't really reflect my demographic, that they are still spoken to. And that's the challenge, I think, of all of us, especially for folks like me in these purple or light pink districts, where you have to engage your base, because they will make or break us, especially with turnout. But you also have to make sure that you aren't viewed as an extremist candidate that doesn't understand and can't relate to their everyday values. But it's really not that hard to do, because I am still a Midwesterner, and Midwesterners just kind of are like this. So you get really like folksy, and you talk about farms and cows and all that good stuff, and it works out in the end.
Well, I'm gonna give you some good news, because Donald Trump's policies are so terrible that even in Florida, we've had couple of special elections for Congress, where in the last election they won by 25 points. In this election, the Republicans maybe won by 10 points. But here's something else. In Virginia, listen to this. This is as of June 15th. Over 204,000 Virginians had cast early ballots, 189,000 of them Democrats, 65,000 more Democrats than at the same point in 2021. So I think that is an indication that Democrats are mobilizing. Because remember, even in Virginia, they don't even have a Democratic, the governor's race isn't even on the primary ballot. You know, they have some lower, I mean, they have some important races, but I think that we're
That's a good sign.
energized. We're energized.
So this has gone by so fast, and I just have appreciated all of your wisdom and words and encouragement. I think a lot of our women are excited to think about where they might put their name in the hat and run. I just want to close by asking for each of you to give a call to action. We do have a slide to share, but
Okay.
when you get that, to also please, like what we can do, you know, our million four. But I also want to ask you to just share like one little tidbit of where you are finding your joy when you give your call to action also.
Okay. My mind's easy. My joy are my grandchildren. They're two little boys, 4 and 6. I've said before, I want them to grow up in a world where all our children have great opportunities.
And we're sharing in the chat a Google form for those who are interested in getting more connected to elect Democratic women. Please fill that out. We'll also send it out with the replay. What about you, Representative Torres? What's a call to action and a joy foundation for you?
My call to action would be stop with the purity tests. Know that we are all fighting really, really hard, pushing back against this administration. The enemy is Donald Trump, not our Democrats.
Right.
And I get inspiration when I see calls coming into my district office with people weighing in on issues that are important to them. Not just, know on this, but just tell me, what are your top concerns? And those are the issues that I want to focus on. Continue to inspire us by being vocal against what is happening, and continue to be a witness, because we will have our day in court. I get inspired too by my grandchildren.
Right.
What about you, Representative Sykes?
So I'm born and raised in Akron, Ohio. And in 1851, there was a very, very important speech given here in my hometown by a lady named Sojourner Truth. You may have heard of her. And she gave the speech, Ain't I a Woman? And it's about a block and a half from where I'm sitting right now. And I am always encouraged by her because she was an abolitionist. She believed in the women's right to vote, but as a Black woman was not always invited and was not always welcomed. And just like the women's convention that happened so many years ago, she was not invited and not welcomed, and they did not want her to speak. But after sitting there and listening, she said she had to speak up for women. She had to speak up for Black women and what it's like being both in a position of authority and trying to be in a position of influence. And so the last thing that she said in her speech is what I like to share with other people, and I like to share it with other groups, particularly women. And there is now a statue of Sojourner Truth in my district. It's the largest public art installation for a Black woman in the entire country. So come see it if you'd like. But what she said to us was, if the first woman that God ever made was strong enough to turn this world upside down, then all of us together ought to be able to get it right side up again. And that's exactly what all of these women on this phone call are going to do, women forward. And I just think about that all the time. I get to drive by it, and I just remember what she had to deal with was nothing compared to what we are dealing with. And we're going to get it. We're going to get this world right side up again.
You know,
on that note, I think that's a beautiful note to close on, actually, because we are at 4 o'clock. Sorry, Representative Frankel, did you have?
No, I was going to say that's great. I think, you know, I think the point, and Emilia, you said it the best when you talked about her, is everybody remember this: silence is deadly. So you keeping your voice, you don't have to run for office.
Yep.
You know, but keep up the noise, folks, and we got to get louder and louder.
That's right. Thank you so much. This was very inspiring. We appreciate all of your time because we know that all of you are incredibly busy. We will share the replay out with everyone who registered and your offices as well. And we hope that everyone will follow up with both our group, Women Forward, and with Elect Democratic Women, and let's go make those targets of 100+ women in Congress happen and at every other level. Thank you.
Thank you.